Hello and welcome back to Shelf Center. This is Bryce. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thanks for liking and subscribing. This is something you end up enjoying. You never know, it could happen. Anyway, we've got some top shelf news for you today. That's my favorite things as far as news in fantasy, science fiction, sometimes horror, and mostly related to books, also related to media. Today we've got some big, it's the State of the Sanderson came out, and I wanted to talk about that. That's probably going to be middle of the video at the end of the book section. I'll have links below so you can jump around to your heart's content, because anyway, I try not to hide the ball at least as much as my laziness allows. But first things first, in other Brandon Sanderson news that he did just come out with, we've got a new name for the Stormlight Archive Book 5 and a new date for the release for 2024. So anyway, with the new name, Wind and Truth. It used to be like tentatively called Knights of Wind and Truth. It was a bit clunky, it was a bit much, so I like this kind of just Wind and Truth, Words of Radiance, Way of Kings, Oathbringer, Rhythm of War. Anyway, one really that doesn't fit, but at least it's just a little less clunky, and I like that. What's funny is at the Dragonsteel convention, he did mention that they were going to have a release date for Stormlight Archive 5, the Wind and Truth, man, if I get that right, for December 7th of 2024. It's changed to December 6th. He did say that's still not a normal like publication release date. Usually it's earlier in the week. I believe Tuesday is what he said. But I clearly don't pay attention to that apparently. And apparently kind of semi-lost that battle though, because I think they were going for a Saturday, which is why it's now a Friday with this publisher. It's going to obviously be a huge success. I don't know why there's any problem with that. I mean, look at what everything he's done, all the books he's sold. I mean, even his worst sold books, they're gonna be fine. So anyway, I don't have any worries about that. But anyway, wanted to mention that, wanted to talk about that. Speaking of new titles for books, new release dates, P.L. Stewart just announced the 4th book in his Drowned Kingdom series. Book 4 being A Lion's Pride, coming out in the spring of 2024. So get excited for that. I am. Anyway, P.L. Stewart, great guy, awesome stuff. Love the success that he's seeing, and can't wait to see more of that go on. Speaking of new announcements for books, Adrian M. Gibson has announced this is very interesting to me. I have zero fascination with mushrooms, but it's interesting to me. So we've got Mushroom Blues. This is the Hoffman Report #1 in the fungal verse. There's so many things with this. I love it, but I'm also like, it's mushrooms. I enjoy them from time to time. But anyway, we got a release date for spring of 2024. But I kind of love it, and I'm excited for it. Adrian M. Gibson, been great just for working in the community of science fiction and fantasy. Great podcasts, great episodes. Anyway, go check them out. I'll have links below. Speaking of self-published authors, which I believe the last two are, at least P.L. Stewart is, we've got Zach Argyle had just posted a new, it's unofficial, but an unofficial map for the new series that he's working on. If you haven't checked out Threadlight by now, you definitely should. It's just one of those great examples of how good we have it right now, both having traditional publishing and self-publishing, because the self-publishing books are at the same level and they're competing and they're doing great. And the Threadlight is one of those by Zach Argyle. And so anyway, I am absolutely going to be gobbling up anything that he produces. And I'm still waiting on my omnibus for the Threadlight trilogy, and I'm very excited for it, the special edition. All right, then in other news, we've got the Goodreads Choice Awards were announced pretty recently, early December. And what is the date today? Oh yeah, still not the end of December, and yet we have our best books for the year of 2023 at not the end of the year. You know, it is what it is. I've complained about it enough. I'm sorry, but anyway, check them out if you want. I struggle. I boycott it every single year. So my votes aren't in there. I'm sorry, authors, and I know they get lots from it. It's a good thing. Overall, I just, as someone who has a birthday in December, who may feel a little neglected sometimes. You know, it's one of those things that frustrates me a little bit. Then I wanted to quickly address this whole thing. I'm so late to the party that it's completely not even an issue anymore. Nobody's talking about it anymore, but I did want to address it. This is one of those Bryce rants, spicy Brycey, as some may have called it in the comments. This Cait Corrain issue, if you don't know, you already do, I'm sure, but this author was about to be published by Del Rey, so a Big Six published author, at least soon to be, review bombed and gave a bunch of negative reviews to a bunch of authors with books, I think, coming out about the same time as her new book. I guess the thought process being, I can tank theirs to help mine. It makes zero sense if you think about it for more than 3 seconds. They also tended to be people of color. I don't know why she would also focus in that regard unless certain things are happening, so it's hard not to believe that. So she was called out on it because it was pretty obvious that the couple of fake accounts that she was clearly creating were all giving all these other authors negative reviews, and then her book ended up being like the one positive review they'd give. So it's like, took very little detective work, it seems like. Then that went from that to the author denying it completely, which is just fun, you know. Always a good plan, right? Denying the clear and obvious evidence against you. To then writing out a full-blown apology, and that's why I can speak pretty, I think, frankly here. This is obviously all my opinion here, but then offering a full-blown like apology. You know, placing blame, certain things, mental health. I do feel like she's had her, I guess, comeuppance on this, her punishment for it, because Del Rey then gave up on her whole contract, and I don't know if there's any ramifications. They probably write that in there as like, if you act like an idiot, then we can then take away your whole contract. I'm sure there's something in there that they just have to pull the plug initiative here. So anyway, but at least she owned up to it to some degree. I know, and I always, my thing anymore though is like, what is a good apology? Because I feel like most are just, I've never really heard of anyone saying, well, that was at least a good apology. It's always just treated as like, well, that was crap, that was terrible. I do think, like, what is a good apology? I felt like she did take ownership of it, at least. Again, I do feel like there had to have been some kind of mental health issues there going, because if you just think of the thought process on that, it just doesn't make any sense. Pulling down another author, how is it going to help you? Like, it's not really a competitive space to me. It's, do people like your book or not? And again, she had promise. She clearly got a good, traditionally published deal here and threw it all away, and at least finally came out with an apology. I don't know. I did just want to talk about it because I just feel like these come up here and there. This one seems extreme, and again, I think she got her punishment for it, and I don't think anyone's going to work with her. Do I think anyone should keep piling on as I'm here piling on? No, and it's just not worth, I guess, our precious lives to waste on it. But I do bring the news, you know, so it's part of the news. Wanted to bring that up. Editing Bryce here, just totally missed this news. Huge Cradle news. So Will White just announced it, did his typical countdown thing on his Instagram, and then just announced that he's doing a big, huge Kickstarter, turning it into an animation. And I think that's just awesome. I think it'll be so fun. I think it's the perfect outlet. And then what he's got on board is Jay Oliva, who, if you look at his repertoire here on IMDb, it's awesome. I mean, he is a real legit animation director, and hopefully, and apparently reached out to Will to get this going, so and potentially get Cradle animated. So there's going to be a Kickstarter. That's where they're going with this, is crowdfunding, which, anyway, this sounds so cool. I cannot wait to see what they do with it, but I don't know. It seems like it's in really good hands. All right, finally, I wanted to get into the state of the Sanderson. That just barely came out here. I look forward to it every year. It's just great. I love how open Sanderson is. He's not always like exactly right about his predictions or whatever, but he's very open about it, and so therefore, anything I think can be forgiven very easily, because he tends to be sidetracked in good ways, right? In ways that always benefit us. But anyway, just a couple of the things that I pulled out of it that I thought were really good. Book 5 of Stormlight Archive coming out next year. What is interesting is it looks like that's the only book coming out next year, and we're talking December, which is just crazy. After publishing 5 books in the year of 2023, I guess we can forgive him and about only publishing 1,000-page long book. That takes him some time. Apparently, he has another Stormlight Archive novella about, called Horn Eater, about rock, which I think will be awesome. I love rock, and he was thinking about getting that because there's going to be a Words of Radiance leatherbound Kickstarter coming up this next year. It's not going to be as crazy as the Secret Project, but I'm sure it will do quite well. They tend to, and they look so good. So I understand. I'm debating. I'm on the fence. I don't know if I'm going to be there too, buying it. I might have to, though. I've drunk the Kool-Aid when it comes to special editions. So here we are. But I'm also saving my money for other things, so I'll talk about that maybe later. But anyway, Horn Eater, he says, is not going to happen probably for some time because I don't know. It just seems like he needs a Stormlight Archive break, and let's not rush him on that. I'm fine with that. But anyway, his next couple big projects to focus on, because it looks like 2024 is just going to be revising Stormlight Archive 5, Wind and Truth, right? And then it looks like probably writing the actual prose version of White Sand, because right now it's just a graphic novel. But anyway, so that was interesting that like 2024 looks like not the usual Sanderson year. It's going to be pretty much just getting Stormlight Archive ready and then getting White Sand ready. So things that kind of we already have, I guess. Well, one of the things. That's it for 2024. Not a whole lot. But then 2025, we're looking at him jumping back into Mistborn. So we're talking Era 3, which is very cool. So Era 3 will start, it looks like he'll start in 2025, which is just crazy to me. So there you go on that, and it's going to take, he predicts probably about each book being about 200,000 words long, and then but he kind of said that he can only write about 300,000 words in a year, so which is a pretty dang good amount here. But especially with all the extra things he's got planned. But then also he wants to focus on the sequels. So 2 sequels to Elantris. I've already kind of touched on this, so that's not huge news there. But again, they're gonna take some time because he's gonna write the whole thing first, and then the books will come out. So we're talking, it's gonna be some time, and so Mistborn books we're talking they're probably gonna come out sometime December 2028 at the earliest for book 1, and then we're talking 2029, and then maybe even into 2030 for the 3rd book. I think he is trying to just be very careful with his predictions here. Another thing that was interesting, because if you remember in Sanderson's big reveal of the secret projects and of the Kickstarter, there were actually 5 books total that he piled up in his pile. But then the secret projects, the year of Sanderson for the Kickstarter, ended up being only the 4 books. I have been curious about that, patiently awaiting. So apparently that 5th book he is going to be working on. So that's already done. And probably jump away if you don't want spoilers on this, but it's apparently a graphic novel that essentially based on some stuff his kids drew and that he turned into what's called Super Awesome Danger. It's a middle grade novel about 2 brothers based on his own kids. And one creates a game called Super Awesome Danger, the other gets trapped in it. And so and then it's going to be a graphic novel. So anyway, looks pretty cool, and I think that's so fun. How cool to be a child of Brandon Sanderson and have your creations brought to life. So I think that's pretty cool. I thought it was interesting too, the book that he's been working on, he's been talking about for years in these State of the Sandersons with Peter Arulian. I've talked about Peter Arulian before. He's written The Unremembered, and I thought it was a great book. So I'm looking forward to this one. It's called Songs of the Dead. He's very much into music. He's a musician, and It looks like Sanderson kind of gave the reins over to Peter to mostly flesh this out and do most of the work, even though I think it's Sanderson's world building. Because again, he makes a big theme of the state of the Sanderson is essentially, look, I've had to realize where I've got to focus. It's got to be the Cosmere and maybe a couple non-Cosmere things, but it can't be too many non-Cosmere things, and he's committed to a lot of stuff. So anyway, that's good. We get updates then, bunch of his team, of course, mainly Dan Wells, and Dan Wells has been open about mental health issues and stuff like that, so kind of what some of the stuff that he's been doing is taking a little longer, but he's doing the dark one. Then the big ones is we get the typical, as it has been for the last number of years, no real movement on Warbreaker or the Arithmetist, which we already kind of knew. Reckoners Alcatraz Legion all finished. There might be more with one of the co-authors of that, of the Reckoners, so we might see more of that. We'll see. Apparently there has been some progress in the Dan Wells Cosmere novel and the Isaac one, so I guess we'll see on that. Kind of just have to see. And then he goes, various Cosmere books I might write someday, and I'll just list them off. The Night Brigade, Dragonsteel, The Silence Divine, The Grand Apparatus, Mythos, The Aether World book series, and it keeps growing, apparently. Also, I mean, the biggest maybe that you might, the biggest that you might think, I don't know where you stand on this, but been a bit of a slowdown on the Hollywood stuff, some hiccups, which I just seems like that's the name of the game, unless it's Fourth Wing. Although there apparently is a little bit of movement in his Snapshot novella getting adapted. We'll see. So anyway, good update overall. It's kind of, I feel like they're getting, these updates are not I don't love them as much as I used to. With all the team and everyone kind of chiming in on it, I don't care for them as much. I feel bad, but it's just less personal, I guess. And so I don't love the team involvement. There's a whole part about the international books and publishing, which I think that's a good one. That needs to be said. But other than that, I don't know. For me, I just don't care so much about the teams, what they're doing. I just feel like that always is like, and I made this known, I am concerned when an author goes this big and then has that huge team, and he's admitted, he's like, no author has this many assistants and this much of a team. But it is one of those where you're like, because it starts to blur the lines of like what's actually the author that you love stuff and what's everybody else's. Anyway, it's fine, and again, there's clearly so much out there that a team is needed, and there's so much out there to get to us that at least it looks like Sanderson's trying to do everything he can to prevent us from running into a George R. R. Martin or Patrick Rothfuss situation. So I mean, can't look a gift horse in the mouth now, can I? All right, that's the state of Sanderson. Let's jump into the media. There's a bunch of different adaptation newses, so I wanted to jump into that. First things first, The Wheel of Time apparently is getting itself a movie. Quite interesting. And that's been kind of news that's semi-known, I guess. It's going to be about the Legends time period, a prequel, essentially. And there's been some, like in the show first season, I don't know about the second season. First season went a little bit into the age of Legends, but it's gotten a director now, and that's Kerry Skoglund. If you look at Skoglund's, got a good resume. Falcon and the Winter Soldier director, a number of good things. And very popular, prominent things. I still am, you get concerned because I just feel like Wheel of Time's kind of a huge fan base, kind of a huge thing, and you kind of, I don't know, I guess we will have to see it to believe it, and I've been disappointed in the past, so that's, I guess, my trepidation going forward in seeing how well this will be adapted. So I have low expectations, but at the same time, let's hope it's good, and we'll see from there. And again, I've liked the things that I've seen of this director, so I think that's a good sign. But again, it's usually with like lower budget things. I don't know. We'll see what I assume will be a bigger budget, but again, I don't know. I just too many things and too many frustrations. But the Wheel of Time show is kind of it's felt at times like lower budget, like CW type work. And anyway, I worried about anything that gets to that level. Other big news is that Murderbot, I absolutely love the Murderbot series. I can't wait to finish it, but it is getting picked up by Apple Plus, and it looks like Skarsgård is gonna be involved in it. So that's a huge star, huge thing. I always kind of pictured, I guess, the Murderbot as being female, but that's, I guess, the beauty of the character is that, and I assume that's what Skarsgård would be. There's only that's the main character in the Murderbot series, and I've just been loving it. Again, it's not really, I mean, it's a machine and it can be anything, right? So I guess that's the beauty of it, and maybe it will be. Maybe the series, that's just like one facet, and then anyway, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath. Who knows where it's going to go with it? I've never seen Skarsgård. Skarsgård is kind of like more serious, and I'm like, the Murderbot is like pretty hilarious. So I don't know how that's going to go. That's my one thing where I'm going, cool, but I don't know. I just haven't seen the comedy chops, and there's a lot of just hilarious things. And maybe that's what you need, though, in this, is just to be completely straight with this, because that's kind of how it is. And that's, the Murderbot is a robot that doesn't understand humans and is commenting on that all the time. And so maybe that's just what it needs. But anyway, it's exciting that it's going to, I would love to see how that goes and how it gets adapted. I think of the many things and availabilities for adaptation, I think Murderbot can do really well. I think it'll be a really cool, I don't know, as long as it's well done, of course, but it's got great set of books that I hope we just follow the books, and it's got like plenty of great material to go off of. All right, then the other huge news in adaptations is Tad Williams' Otherland. That's a huge classic in science fiction, this huge 4-book series. It's been picked up by Platige Image, and I am probably way off of that. I'm not pronouncing that right. They've done The Witcher, Love, Death, and Robots, so there's some good things behind that, so that's good. Again, however it's pronounced the right way. Otherland is seminal in science fiction. I personally, and so is Tad Williams in science fiction and fantasy, so that's cool, and been around for ages, and it seems like this is the first thing that Tad Williams has had picked up and get potentially adapted. Maybe there's been others that we just haven't heard of. But Otherland, for me, I'm excited, and I hope that the show can do, I feel like a show can really streamline the books, because I got 2 books in and I liked them. They were good, so I have nothing against them, but they were each these huge tomes of like 1,000 pages, mass market paperback each. All those pages to just get not very far in the story is what it felt like to me. It didn't feel like I had any kind of energy to move forward with the rest of the series, which only got bigger. For me, it wasn't, I liked it, but it was just like, all that to get here, I don't have this in me to keep going. So I gave up on the series. I read 2 books in, and again, I still liked them though. I can't even say I didn't like them. I liked them. It was just too much to keep going. But anyway, I said that 1,000 times. We'll see. I feel like a good adaptation can really kind of streamline and cut out some of the slower parts and get us to some of the things where you could just see and they go quicker than the 20 pages it took to describe a thing that you're just going to see. So anyway, good news. Then apparently Good Omens got picked up or renewed. Good Omens got renewed for a 3rd season. Just from what I've heard, it's like the first season is the book, and then the second season is like Neil Gaiman goes from there and kind of takes it. So that sounds awesome. Again, with Neil Gaiman being involved, obviously, sadly, Terry Pratchett can't be. He passed away. But then the 3rd season is apparently going to be what they were kind of working on, Gaiman and Pratchett, as far as a potential sequel. So that's kind of cool. I like, kind of just like bringing that back and bringing some of those Terry Pratchett ideas back in. I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, I clearly need to watch it already. That's been the news to me. Don't forget to check out the Kindle book deals in the description below. Check out the links that I referenced here today in the links below, like the State of the Sanderson, if you haven't already been there. And let me know if there's any news I missed, and I'll try to add it in, or let me know what's going on. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thanks for liking and subscribing. We'll catch you later. Bye.